The silent divorce. 5. Signs your spouse is emotionally checking out. Most marriages don't end with a fight. They end with silence. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the kind where two people live in the same house, share the same bed, raise the same children, and slowly become strangers. No shouting, no dramatic arguments, no obvious crisis, just distance. Psychologists sometimes call this the silent divorce. A relationship that still exists on paper, but emotionally, has already begun to fade. And the most dangerous part? Most couples don't notice it happening until the connection is already gone. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 subtle signs that emotional disconnection may be creeping into your marriage, and more importantly, what you can do about it before it becomes permanent. Welcome to The Connected Couple. This channel is dedicated to protecting what you've built, by strengthening marriages through everyday habits, communication, and awareness. Because strong marriages rarely fail suddenly. They usually fade slowly, quietly, and preventably. What is a silent divorce? A silent divorce doesn't mean two people stop loving each other overnight. It usually begins with emotional withdrawal, small changes in behavior, small gaps in communication, small moments where connection used to exist, but no longer does. Over time, those small gaps become emotional distance, and emotional distance eventually becomes emotional independence. Two people who once felt like a team slowly begin living separate emotional lives. They still function as partners. They still manage the household, but the friendship, curiosity, and emotional safety begin to disappear. And when that happens, the marriage can begin to feel more like a shared responsibility than a relationship. Let's talk about 5 early signs this may be happening. Sign number 1. Conversations become transactional. The first sign is when conversations become purely functional. Communication shifts from connection to logistics. Instead of conversations like, "How was your day? What's been on your mind lately? I've been thinking about something." The conversations start sounding more like, "Did you pay the bill? What time is the appointment? Who's picking up the kids?" Nothing is technically wrong, but something important is missing. Curiosity, emotional sharing, genuine interest. Healthy marriages maintain ongoing emotional dialogue, not just task coordination. When that dialogue fades, couples slowly stop knowing each other's inner world. And that's often where emotional disconnection begins. Sign number 2. Less interest in each other's inner world. In strong relationships, partners stay curious about each other. They want to know, what stresses you? What excites you? What are you thinking about these days? But when someone begins emotionally checking out, something subtle happens. They stop asking questions, not out of hostility, often just out of detachment. Your partner's thoughts, feelings, or experiences stop feeling personally relevant, and without curiosity, emotional intimacy slowly weakens. The relationship becomes parallel lives instead of shared lives. Sign number 3. Conflict disappears, but not in a healthy way. Many people assume that fewer arguments means a healthier relationship, but sometimes the opposite is true. In emotionally disconnected marriages, conflict doesn't disappear because problems are solved. It disappears because one or both partners stop trying. They stop raising concerns. They stop pushing for resolution. They stop investing the emotional energy required to improve the relationship. It's not peace, it's resignation. Healthy couples still disagree, but they care enough to work through those disagreements. When that effort disappears, it can be a quiet sign of emotional withdrawal. Sign number 4. Affection becomes routine or disappears. Another sign of emotional distance is a shift in physical affection, not necessarily intimacy alone, but the everyday gestures that signal emotional closeness, holding hands, sitting close together, small touches during conversation, warm greetings when you see each other. In connected marriages, these gestures happen naturally. But when emotional connection weakens, affection often becomes habitual, mechanical, or absent. Not because the couple dislikes each other, but because the emotional energy behind those gestures has faded. Sign number 5. Your spouse starts living a separate emotional life. Perhaps the most important sign is when your partner begins investing their emotional energy elsewhere. Not necessarily in another person, but in separate emotional worlds. Work becomes their primary outlet. Friends become their emotional support system. Hobbies or distractions fill the space that the relationship once occupied. Again, these things are not inherently unhealthy. But when the marriage is no longer the primary place where emotional connection happens, distance tends to grow quickly. Important shift. Now here's the important part. Seeing one or two of these signs does not mean a marriage is failing. Every long-term relationship experiences seasons of stress, busy schedules, parenting responsibilities, financial pressure, fatigue. But awareness matters, because the earlier couples recognize emotional drift, the easier it is to rebuild connection. How to reverse a silent divorce. The good news is that emotional disconnection is often reversible, and it usually doesn't require dramatic changes. It requires intentional small habits. Here are 3 powerful starting points. First, restore daily emotional check-ins. 10 minutes of intentional conversation each day can completely change the emotional climate of a relationship. No phones, no logistics, just connection. Second, reintroduce curiosity. Ask questions again, not about schedules, but about thoughts, worries, goals, and experiences. Curiosity rebuilds emotional closeness. Third, prioritize small moments of affection, not grand romantic gestures, just small reminders that the relationship still matters. Connection is rarely rebuilt in one big moment. It's rebuilt in many small ones. The silent divorce is dangerous not because it is dramatic, but because it is quiet. It grows slowly, and often invisibly. But the same thing that causes distance, small daily habits, is also what restores connection. Most strong marriages are not strong because they avoid problems. They are strong because both people continue choosing the relationship, even when life gets busy. And sometimes the most powerful step is simply noticing the drift early and deciding to reconnect. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing to The Connected Couple. Each week we explore practical ways to protect, strengthen, and reconnect in long-term relationships. Because the goal of a strong marriage isn't perfection. It's staying connected through the seasons of life.